Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess is one of the most unique games of the Zelda franchise. Released in 2006 after the criticism fans had with the Wind Waker's cartoony design, Nintendo took the complete opposite approach. They created the dark, realistic game that the fans wanted. As a result of this, the game is very different from any of the other titles in the series. I had never played this game before, not even when I was younger. Weirdly enough though, I have a memory of watching my dad play through the Stallard fight in Arbiter's Grounds. Other than that, and the multitudes of speedrun content, shoutouts to Be Wild Beast and Gymnast86 for those, and the gameplay I've watched, I knew almost nothing of this game. Well, okay, that's like half a lie. I knew some of it, but most of it was relatively unknown to me. Needless to say, I was pretty surprised by some aspects of the game. Let's talk about them. One thing that I hear a lot of fans complain about is the opening in Orden Village. People say that it's too long and doesn't get into much of the action right away. While I understand what they're saying, I have to disagree. I thought the prologue was the perfect amount of time, establishing a setting and initial conflict with King Bulblin. I also liked herding goats. That was my favorite part. Also the part where the children are impressed with your swordplay. The whole thing is just a glorified tutorial, but I think they did a great job. Outside of the prologue, the game's story is one of the best in the Zelda franchise. This is the part where I spoil this game, by the way, so if you don't want that, please go play this game first. Anyway, after Ilia, Link's main love interest, gets taken by the Bulblins, Link finds himself in Twilight as a wolf with an imp named Midna. He learns more about the world around him and helps clear the Twilight areas around Hyrule. After clearing the Lanayru Twilight, Link learns of Zant, the new ruler of the Twilight Kingdom. Now, the motivation changes a bit. It goes from saving Ilia to saving the whole world. Link has to repair the Mirror of Twilight to get fused shadows for Midna. Because after all that work, Zant just steals them back. What a jerk. So he has to do something more dungeon something. He then confronts Zant in his palace, and there he learns that Ganon has been reincarnated in Hyrule Castle. He then goes to Hyrule Castle, and after literally 4 phases of Ganon fights, he wins. If you've played this game before, you'll know that I've oversimplified a lot of it. There are a lot of subplots, including stuff involving Ilia's sketchy memory of Link after being kidnapped. It's a really good story that has a lot of impact. I swear, the part where Colin falls over after being rescued by Link made me think he was going to die. I know, that's like insane for a Zelda game, but I really did believe it. I would say that this game has the best story of all the 3D Zeldas next to Skyward Sword. That's not to say that the other ones don't have a good story, but I feel like these in particular are more impactful. Aside from the main story, I really enjoyed the side quests in this game. The bug and Poe collecting are really fun ideas that keep you on your toes. My only complaint with the Poe one specifically is the fact that they don't let you conveniently switch from day to night. Why didn't they add a feature to switch from day to night? I swear, that would have saved me so much time that I spent sitting there like a loser. I also really loved finding the hidden skills from the Golden Wolves. There's semi-optional moves that you find from these wolves around the world. The way they appear is really cool. As you go through your quest, you'll find these small statues with holes in them. Interacting with them, you'll have to replicate a song played by the wind. I honestly thought these were kind of challenging. I'm sure there's an easier way to do them, but some of the melodies are so dissonant it was hard to tell. Once you play the song, you'll have to find the corresponding golden wolf in Hyrule. The wolf always says, "Take sword in hand and find me," referring to the fact that you have to be a human. This is where the hero Shade comes from, by the way. You know, the dude who was set to die at the end of Majora's Mask? Yeah, him. Reading his dialogue, it's even more apparent that it's him. He always talks about his lost art and how he could never pass on his knowledge to the future generations of the hero. Heck, one of the moves you learn is literally called the Great Spin, which is a direct reference to Majora's Mask. The moves that this guy teaches are really cool too. When I learned the backslice, I abused it so much. It was super useful against those mid to late game enemies, like Darknuts and King Bulblin. There were also some moves I never used though, like the Great Spin at the end. There's pretty much no point in using it because you have to be at full health for it to even work. I get that it's a reference to the old games, but come on! At the very end? That's stupid. And speaking of dumb things, let's talk about mini-games. Oh boy, the mini-games. You know, watching Linkus 7 play Twilight Princess randomizers and struggle so hard on these mini-games made me really dread them. And honestly, I could see how they would be kind of hard. But I think Linkus is just mad cause bad, because these are really fun. My favorite one is the fruit one with Plum the bird. You have to fly around and combo fruits together to get points. Granted, you only need 10k, so it's not that bad. It reminds me a lot of Super Mario Galaxy, which I'm sure took inspiration from this game. There's another minigame where you have to ride this boat from the top of Zora's River to the bottom while shooting pots. It's a good test of your aim and is pretty decently challenging. Then there's the star minigame in Castletown where you have to collect stars using your claw shot, and then later your double claw shot. The first version is way more challenging than the second one for whatever reason, but both aren't that bad. My favorite part of this minigame though is the serious beef the Game Master has with Link. He's pretty cocky most of the time, but when you win, he's absolutely flabbergasted. Like, no way he won that. It's hilarious. So yeah, the minigames in this game are pretty good, all things considered. Oh no. So there's this minigame called Roll Goal that's in the fishing area of Upper Zora's River. To be honest, I'm not even sure how many people know about this game, but this game just sucks. Pretty much the whole idea is you have to get a ball to the end of a goal. The problem is that this ball goes everywhere but the right way. You have to be very careful maneuvering the ball to the goal with this slippery physics. It might be the worst minigame ever conceived. If you don't believe me, go back and play it yourself. It's literally the worst ever. And speaking of the worst ever, let's talk about heart pieces. Most of them are fairly easy or straightforward to get. However, there are some that aren't like this at all. The most infamous one is bringing the hot spring water to the fallen Goron. I can definitely see why this would be bad. You first have to donate 1,000 rupees to Malomart, and then you can do the horrible run over. But I'll be completely honest, I skipped it on the first playthrough, because I didn't know how to get the spring water. But then there's the donation guy. Yeah, you know the one. I alluded to it in another one of my videos, but actually doing the quest is horrible. To get this heart piece, you have to donate 1,000 rupees for the sake of peace in Hyrule. You already spend so much money in this game's side quests, so adding extra costs on top of that is just insane. Also, he never tells you exactly how much you should be donating. He only says that if you keep donating, maybe love will appear or something. I just think it's ridiculous. And speaking of ridiculous, no, I'm just kidding. Let's talk about something different. Like dungeons. The dungeons in this game are really well done, and each of them is aesthetically super cool. But, you know, I'm kind of bored of doing this back and forth. So instead, let's go ahead and rank them. That's right, you get 2 videos in 1. What a lucky day. Of the dungeons in this game, Lakebed Temple was by far the least fun. The whole idea of the dungeon is interesting, I guess. You pretty much have to move these big stairs to send the water flow to different levels, find keys, and eventually get the boss key. It reminds me of Great Bay Temple, but like, only the worst parts of it. The claw shot is a really fun item, basically acting as the hook shot. You can use it to extend infinitely, which I think is weird. Other than that, the dungeon felt super confusing. And let's not talk about the fact that the boss door is right at the start. Morpheal is actually the only boss I've failed multiple times, mainly because of his first phase. I don't know why, but I find the first phase so insanely hard. It's pretty much like Morpha, you know, the water temple boss from Ocarina of Time, but as an eel. Get it? Morpha eel? Morpheal? Yeah, never mind. You have to hit its eyeball several times to get it into the second phase. After that, it's basically home free, but until then, good luck. Maybe I just suck, I don't know. I might be slightly biased, but City in the Sky was one of the worst dungeons in the game. It reminded me of the Water Temple in a lot of ways, and nobody wants to be reminded of the Water Temple when they're playing a completely different Zelda game. The way this dungeon progresses is super confusing. It basically revolves around this central room, and you have to visit other neighboring rooms that have keys. This culminates in finding the dungeon item, the second claw shot. The rest of it uses the item pretty heavily, as you'll have to hook to multiple places to access new areas. It's a pretty cool idea, but the execution wasn't great in my opinion. I liked Argarok. You pretty much have to climb up and hook his tail when he's vulnerable. It's not a very difficult boss, but I was by far the most stressed when fighting him of all the bosses. After ranking the 2 worst dungeons, it's pretty hard to choose dungeons to rank with each other. They're all really good in their own way. That being said, Goron Mines never truly stood out to me. I like the design, the puzzles with the iron boots, and the concept of building a key, but I don't know. It just wasn't as interesting in my mind. It unfortunately feels kind of generic. Also, how are you going to tell me that the mini-boss of this dungeon is so much harder than the boss? I swear, I must have died to Dangoro at least 3 times. Meanwhile, Virus? First try. Not even a challenge. I guess the shooting the weak point thing is more intuitive than, hey, do this thing you've only done a few times at this point thing. I don't know. Does this even count? I really am not sure. Oh well, I'm counting it anyway. Hyrule Castle is interesting because the dungeon part of the dungeon isn't really a dungeon. It's more like a mini dungeon that involves you getting to the boss as quickly as possible. I appreciate the story elements in this one, like the scene where Link goes to the boss key and gets saved by the people he's helped, and the final King Baldwin fight. He reveals himself to be more of an anti-villain rather than a true evil. I guess I'll use this opportunity to talk about the final boss of the game, Ganondorf. The whole encounter with Ganondorf makes him seem like a relatively calm character, but he shows his evil side almost immediately. You see, Ganondorf has a 4-phase fight. 4. That's crazy. The first phase is Puppet Zelda, which is based on the original Ganondorf fight from Ocarina of Time. You pretty much have to play tennis with her when she shoots her balls of light. Otherwise, you'll be dodging the whole time. She generates light triangles that you'll have to avoid, and she'll charge at you. It's not the most difficult boss in the world, but we're just getting started. Then there's Dark Beast Ganon, which, wrong timeline, buddy. He's also not the hardest boss. He'll pretty much run around and charge at you occasionally. All you have to do is shoot his glowing forehead to make him fall, then hit his stomach with your sword. The final part gets a bit more interesting though. Instead of doing the same thing over and over again, you'll take him down as Wolf Link. It is a fun callback to the beginning of the game with the goats, I will say. But that's about it. Then there's the actual final fight. The first phase is on horseback. Ganondorf will ride around and attack you with his sword and these horse clone things. You pretty much have to get Zelda to shoot at him and then stun him with your sword. I struggled with this one a lot, so if you did too, I would say watch a speedrun. The second phase is a sword fight to the death. Ganondorf is pretty strong, so be careful. You just have to do sword slashes behind him and you'll pretty much be done. That's it. I will say, for being a final boss, Ganondorf was pretty disappointing. I mean, the atmosphere this fight gives is nothing short of amazing, but unfortunately it just feels a bit too easy for my liking. Overall though, a very solid end to a very solid game. At first, I didn't really like the Forest Temple. As the starting dungeon, it felt super confusing and unfair. However, in hindsight, this is a banger. The whole dungeon revolves around saving a bunch of monkeys, who, in turn, help you get around the area. That's pretty much it. The puzzles in here are way fairer than some of the other dungeons, and they actually make more sense. It's a good intro to the linear, but not too linear, way of thinking this game has. Ook was an interesting mini-boss, albeit pretty easy. Diababa was pretty cool, also very easy, but pretty cool. I literally had no idea what to do to kill him, but it's pretty straightforward. You use the Gale Boomerang, one of the best items in the game by the way, to throw bombs at the main guy's head. It's nothing much, but it introduces the mechanic really well. Again, I don't know if this counts as a dungeon, but I'm counting it anyway. The Palace of Twilight is a really cool dungeon. I had already seen what it looks like thanks to Hyrule Warriors, but seeing it in-game for the first time was definitely a standout. The dungeon is pretty easy. Basically, you have to get these balls of light called souls to the very beginning of the dungeon. The thing that makes this a bit more challenging though, is that these hands are just ruthless. They'll come and steal the souls back from you, basically removing all your progress. I'll be honest, I had some anxiety during these sections. I didn't want the hands to grab my soul. Now, I get that this dungeon is not that hard, and it's kind of whatever, and blah blah blah. I do like the Twilight, but whatever. The reason why I'm putting this so high is because of Zant. I love the Zant fight. It's the coolest boss of the entire game. Zant has 6 distinct phases, each of which is based on either a boss or a mini-boss from the previous dungeons you've done. There's Diababa, Dangoro, Morpheal, Ook, Blizzetta, and finally, Zant, I guess. It's basically just a glorified boss rush. And I freaking love boss rushes. Now, granted, I've seen this boss fight like a million times before, but actually doing it is a completely different experience. Man, what a good fight. When I first was doing this dungeon, I honestly didn't like it. I thought it was too wide open and confusing. Much like the Forest Temple, actually. But retrospective wins again! Snow Peak Ruins is a really neat idea that takes a lot of liberties from older Zelda games. It's a giant mansion filled with enemies and chests. The whole quest in this mansion revolves around finding the key to the bedroom at the very top of the mansion. You work together with a very dazed and confused Yetta to try and find it. Instead of finding it though, you find ingredients for a delicious soup. Yum! This soup heals a lot of health too. Adding the final ingredients heals 8 hearts. Overall, the puzzles in this dungeon are really solid. And I mean that literally because there is so much ice in every room. I like the mini-boss being a callback to A Link to the Past, and getting to use the ball and chain is really fun. Blizzetta, though, is an unfortunately easy boss. She spins around and you hit her when she lands. Simple enough. I love the Temple of Time. I don't know why, but something about it makes me reminisce about the first time I played Ocarina of Time on my 3DS. Good times. Anyway, this dungeon ended up being one of my favorite dungeons to go through. I don't know why, considering it's probably the most linear dungeon of the entire game, but I loved it a lot. The linearity made it shine for me. After going through the backtracking that Snow Peak had, it was honestly a breath of fresh air. The Dominion Rod being used for the puzzles going backwards through the dungeon was genius, and definitely a big highlight of the whole thing for me. Also, having my own statue.
Come on, my pet statue. We're going to save Hyrule.
The whole thing honestly reminded me of Tower of the Gods from Wind Waker, just better. Fighting the Dark Nut was surprisingly challenging, but super fun. The same can't be said about Armagoma. The challenging part, not the fun part. The boss is a nice callback to Ocarina of Time, much like the whole Temple of Time thing. Cool references, and one of my favorite dungeons in this game. Of course, you know what I'm about to say. The Arbiter's Grounds is the best dungeon in the game. Let's go, that's what I'm talking about. This dungeon had the most fair, balanced puzzles of the entire game. They actually made some sense. Unbelievable, I know. The first part of the dungeon involves catching 4 Poes, similar to the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time. Each of them reside in a different room with a bunch of mini-puzzles. After getting all the Poes, the next part is, well, just art. After beating whatever the heck this thing is, you get the spinner, allowing you to do your best Tony Hawk impression and grind on the rails. This leads to the room where you get the boss key and finally go upwards to the boss. I spent several days being an idiot in this dungeon, mainly because I didn't beat it right away. Despite that, it ended up being my favorite dungeon in the entire game. Of course, let's not forget the fun Stallard fight. Phase 1 is whatever. I mean, it's good. But Phase 2? What a good boss. Phew. There were a lot of dungeons. Overall, I think this game had some of the best and most challenging dungeons in the entire series. The puzzles require way more out-of-the-box thinking than other Zeldas, and the way you progress through them is a bit less linear. That being said though, I could just be an idiot, like it's very possible that I'm just really stupid. The bosses, on the other hand, are so incredibly easy. Like, over half of them aren't even a challenge. I mean, come on. I died more to mini-bosses than I did to the regular bosses. That shouldn't even be a thing. Then again, bosses don't have to be hard to be good bosses. I enjoyed beating them, even though they pose virtually no threat. Moving swiftly along, this wouldn't be a video from my channel if I didn't at least talk a little bit about the music. This game has some of the most interesting music I've ever heard out of a Zelda game. While the whole soundtrack is composed of MIDI instruments, I think the composers nailed the atmosphere and sound that they wanted. For instance, a vast majority of the dungeons in this game are just ambient tracks, but the atmosphere they create is so well done. Even the tracks that play during cutscenes show the situation so well. In fact, it worked so well that I got nostalgic hearing the Kakariko is Saved track before even watching or hearing anything about this game. It just works so well, and the composers of this soundtrack should be immensely proud of what they've done. With that being said, I'm going to talk about a few of my favorite songs from this game. The Twilight theme is a very fitting one. It's so unnerving, making you feel like you truly don't belong in this world. The bells that play over the music are the cherry on top though. But did you know that these bells are actually a sample? In fact, most of the game's soundtrack uses samples. There's a really great video from Majoran that covers a bunch of these samples and where they're heard in the game. If you're interested, I would highly recommend checking it out. I'll put a link in the description. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the amazing boss themes that came out of this game. Almost every single one is super unique and really carries the energy of the boss itself. My favorite has to be either Diababa or Morpheal, but every other boss theme is really good too. Oh, and as a completely unrelated side note, let it be known that the song that plays during the Flight by Foul minigame in Lake Hylia is so catchy, it was stuck in my head for literally weeks. Who am I kidding? It's stuck in my head right now. Something about it is too catchy, and it might just live on in my brain forever. Overall, I loved playing through Twilight Princess. While it does have some mediocre parts, doesn't every game? No game can be truly perfect, but this game was pretty close. That being said, it's pretty much impossible for me to choose a favorite 3D Zelda game. Seriously, why choose when they're all so good? This game only made it harder for me to pick, which is definitely a good thing. Oh, and sorry for my literal 2-month hiatus. I've been busy traveling and also, just kind of ran out of creative ideas. But I'm back with more motivation to create. If there's any video idea you have for me, let me know. I'd be happy to try and cover it. For now though, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time.